Hello and welcome back, guys. In this particular session, we'll be having a practice of whatever we studied in the previous session about destructuring. So in the previous session, we saw how we can take these complex storage structures or these data structures and we can extract stuff from them and we can apply some logic in order to make our lives easier as developers while we are using the content that is present inside those structures. We saw it for two of the most popular ones that we use while coding. Number one is array and number two was objects. So in this particular one, we'll be dealing with a much complex array and object combination, and you will be required to complete a certain task that will require only the execution of the destructuring knowledge. So let's get right into it. So this will be the starting sandbox that you will get. The instruction, as you can see, is uncomment the code below and make it work without touching the .render method. So what we mean by this is, if you head over to info.js, you will be able to see that I have one array called directors. In this, I have these following properties. And in this, one is name, second is movie by popularity, and this is the average rating one, which is further an object that contains these two properties. Number one is the IMDb rating and number two is the Rotten Tomatoes rating of this particular director. Same for the next one. And these are the movies by popularity in decreasing order. So when we say that top movie of any particular director, we are talking the number one movie in this particular array in this order. So for the first element, the top movie will be this, and for the second element, the top movie will be this. So I don't know whether these are factually correct or not, especially these IMDb ratings and all. But yeah, these two movies are the personal favorites of mine, of both these fellow directors. So coming back to our index.js file, you can see inside .render method, I have these three things mentioned: name, top movie, and IMDb rating. And I have named them accordingly, which will be very intuitive for you guys also. But in order to make this work, the most fundamental thing that we need to ensure is that the variables or whatever we name are variables or constants while destructuring our array, they should be precisely the same as present wherever they are in this code snippet of ours. So I think that explains the code pretty much. Now pause this video and give it a try yourself. Okay, so I have forked this sandbox of mine. First, let's do what the instructions say: uncomment this code. And the moment you do it, you will be able to see that it is literally screaming at us for having so much errors, because the code sandbox is not able to recognize what each of this is. So yeah, before that, I think I forgot to show you. This is how the completed version of our this challenge will look like, sort of this. Okay, so yeah, still there's time. If some of you have still not started, you can give it a try now. Pause this video now. I forgot to show you this previously. Okay, now I hope everyone is on the same page. So first of all, we uncommented the initial code, and the second thing that we need to do is get this directors array inside our index.js. And to do so, I'm gonna export this directors array as default. Let me hit save here. And then we will import that array. It was called directors. From the path will be simply info. And as you know, you can mention .js here, but from ES6, the extension, whatever it is of the particular file, it is optional, so it's better to not use it. Okay, so it stated that we are not allowed to touch any code inside the render method. So one thing is for sure, that whatever we need to do, we have to do it here only. So always remember, in programming, if you are stuck somewhere, especially in development, and you don't know where to proceed, the first thing that you should do with your data is console log it, in order to see where actually we stand. So if you console log it, you will be able to see that we get an array of 2 objects, and if we head over to the first object, which is marked under index 0, we are able to see that we have 2 properties here, and these properties have further different contents in them. For example, this particular property is an array of size 2, which contains this and this, and this particular property is an object of size 2 as well, with these key value pairs. So the first thing that we can see is we need to get these 2 objects out of this array. Okay, and in order to do that, we take const, and since we are dealing with an array, we'll use these braces, these boxy braces of ours, and then we'll take out both our directors one by one. Now, how did I knew that I needed to use these words Nolan and this one? That's because if you head over here, you will be able to see that the name property that is being extracted from something is after Nolan, and here it is after Pandey. So by observing the code there, I'm able to see that, okay, when I am extracting these 2 elements from my directors array, I'm going to name my constants or my variables like this. Okay, so once I do this, you are able to see that the error from the topmost table element of R is gone, because if you comment this out, you'll be able to see that it is showing a red line here as well. But once we write this, that particular error is gone. Okay, so one thing is sorted. The next thing that we needed to do is to get hold of the top movie. And as discussed, the top movie here means this particular element, which means the first element of this property, movies by popularity. So always remember, since let's take Nolan for example, it is the first element of this directors array and it is an object. So whenever I'm referring to any property of it, I need to use precisely the same name as mentioned in the original array. Okay, now what I mean by this is, if I am, because we are dealing with an object now, so I'll be using these curly braces, and then I have to do something with this movie by popularity in concern. So unlike array, I'm not free to name it whatever I want. I have to use it as it is. So I will simply copy this and paste it like this. And now if I want to see what this movie by popularity consists of, okay, let me just paste it. If I do this, you can see it is actually an array of size 2 with this and this. Okay, now we knew that we had an option of renaming, or let's say further getting into these nested arrays and nested objects. So since this is a nested array, what we'll do is we'll use a colon and then we'll specify, okay, now I'm going to take stuff whatever is inside this array, and whatever I name my variable here, this particular variable name will now be associated with the first element of the array, and this variable name will be associated with the second element of my array. Now the important thing to note here is, because this is an array, I am free to choose whatever I want to write my variables that are contained inside this array of mine. However, if I was dealing with an object, which we will in a few seconds, then I will have to use precisely whatever is written here, and I will not be free to rename my variables. So now once I am inside this movie by popularity array, I can see that when we are talking about the top movie, which was the first movie in this particular array, so let's do one thing. Let's copy this and say that the first element of this movie by popularity is this. So this way, if now I try to log this in my console, you'll be able to see the Dark Knight is getting printed. And for example, if I wanted to get hold of the second movie as well, I could name it whatever I want. Whoops. Since it is an array like this, and then if I try to console log it, you'll be able to see the second element is getting logged here. But since I'm only required, I'm only concerned with the first element of this array, I'm going to remove this, and this way you can see another error is gone now. Same we'll do with our second director. Let's just copy paste it like this and change the name of our constants accordingly. Here I'm gonna say like this, and once we are done up till here, you'll be able to see that now two of our errors for both the elements are gone now. So at the first point, we dealt with elements inside an array, two objects, we extracted them like this. The second challenge that we had was to extract the nested array, an element out of a nested array inside the initial array. Okay, nested array is done, and the next step that we have to face now is of a nested object, that is the average rating here. And in order to do it, since we are talking about an object, let's start with Nolan as always, and we know that this particular property is named rating. Always remember to have it precisely the same way as it is written in the original one. And inside this one, I want to get hold of the first element of this. Now, unlike our array where we directly chose the name of our variable here, inside this, if I want to get hold of this key value pair, I have to mention precisely this key. And if I copy this and pasted it like this, and I try to log it here, you will be able to see that the IMDb rating of first element is getting logged inside our console. But if we look here, the variable name that is associated with the IMDb rating is not simply IMDb, but this. So do we know of a method via which we can actually rename these contents that we have inside our objects? And the answer is yes. In the previous session, we saw that if we wanted to rename any of these constants or variables that are used in the objects as it is, we can simply put a colon here, and then I just copy pasted this particular variable name here, and now whatever content was inside this key or whatever value was associated with this key, it will now be renamed as this. And now if I try to log this onto my console, we'll be able to see that whatever I was initially receiving for IMDb, now I am receiving the same for Nolan IMDb. And similarly, we will apply the same technique to the second director as well, our Indian boy. So let me do it like this. Yeah, and once we do this, you can see instantly all the errors are gone, and whatever we wanted to get here. So basically this was a table in which we had the name of the director, the top movie of it, and the average IMDb rating of this director's movies. And apart from their names, both of these things are imaginary. So this is a word of caution for you. Don't come after me that this is the greatest movie or that. This is just an arbitrary one. Similarly, for the second one, we had the name, the top movie, that is being picked from this array, the first element of this array, like this, and the average IMDb rating that is getting picked from this object, from this object's this key value pair. So this way we will be able to achieve this challenge of ours, and once you hit Control Save, all the orientation and the indentation will be taken care of. by our code sandbox. Alright, so how was it? I hope you were able to fulfill or complete this challenge. It was not much difficult, rather I would say the only thing to deal with was the complex data structure that we had. And I think the major point, or the actual crucial point where most of you might have stuck if you did, was the difference when we are dealing with a nested array and a nested object. And that is one thing with which many developers, they still get confused whenever they try to use these objects, these concepts of destructuring in real life, because these nested arrays and these nested objects are so widely used in so many data that we use from here to there in all the APIs that we use. You'll probably see that whatever data we are keeping of any particular individual or any particular object, let's say, so it consists of these all properties which go on nesting down. And always remember, the most crucial difference between the nested array and nested object is the array gives us the freedom of choosing our variables as we want. However, the object has some restrictions, but we know a workaround using which we can rename the properties or the values defined inside the object as well. So I hope this was pretty clear, and with this session the topic of destructuring is over now. If you had any doubts or any recommendations, do let me know in the comment section down below. For this particular session, that will be all from my side, and I'll see you in the next one.